The spit hit Marcus Chen's face just as the lunch bell rang. He stood frozen in the middle of the cafeteria, chicken nuggets scattered at his feet, chocolate milk soaking through his second-hand jeans, while Derek Hastings and his crew laughed so hard they could barely breathe. Every student in Lincoln Preparatory Academy's cafeteria had stopped eating. 300 pairs of eyes watched as the brown-skinned boy with the too small jacket tried not to cry. "That's what you get for sitting at our table, scholarship rat," Derek sneered, his perfectly styled blonde hair catching the fluorescent lights. His Rolex, a 16th birthday gift, glinted as he wiped his mouth with deliberate slowness. Marcus's hands trembled as he reached up to wipe the saliva from his cheek. The humiliation burned hotter than any physical pain. This wasn't the first time. It wouldn't be the last. But something about today felt different.
Worse. More public. More permanent.
I didn't know it was your table, Marcus whispered, his voice barely audible over the growing murmurs and phone cameras now pointed in his direction. There was nowhere else to sit. There's always somewhere else for people like you. Derek's voice echoed through the vaulted ceiling of the cafeteria.
This school?
It's for people whose families actually matter. Not for charity cases who can barely afford the uniform. Brittany Worthington, Derek's girlfriend and daughter of a tech billionaire, flipped her platinum hair and added with a cruel smile, "I heard his mom cleans houses in Riverside."
Can you imagine?
She probably scrubs toilets for a living. The laughter that followed felt like physical blows. Marcus wanted to defend his mother, beautiful, hard-working Elena Chun, who worked 3 jobs to keep him in this prestigious school. Who kissed his forehead every morning at 5 a.m. before leaving to clean the homes of people who would never look her in the eye. Who believed education was the only way out of their 1-bedroom apartment in the worst part of town. But the words wouldn't come.
Instead, tears did.
"Oh my God, he's crying!" Someone shouted from the back.
Take a video.
This is going viral. #ScholarshipBoyBreakdown. Marcus grabbed his backpack, the same one he'd had since 7th grade, now held together with duct tape, and ran. He pushed through the double doors, ignoring the vice principal's shout of Mr. Chen. No running in the halls. He didn't stop until he reached the old supply closet on the 3rd floor, a place he discovered during his first week at Lincoln Prep 2 years ago.
His safe space. His hiding spot.
Inside, surrounded by mops and cleaning solutions that reminded him painfully of his mother, Marcus finally let himself sob.
His phone buzzed. Then again. And again.
Notifications flooded in. The video was already spreading. He watched in horror as someone had posted it to the school's social media page with a caption, "Even scholarship students need to learn their place," face with tears of joy skull. 100 likes in 5 minutes.
200. 500. Comments rolled in.
Why is he even at Lincoln Prep? My parents pay $45,000 a year for me to go here, and we have to share classes with that? Someone check if the silverware is missing from the cafeteria LMAO. Marcus threw his phone against the wall, immediately regretting it. He couldn't afford to replace it. Just like he couldn't afford the $8 lunch he just lost. Just like he couldn't afford to belong. 3 hours earlier. The morning had started like any other. Marcus woke to the sound of his mother moving quietly through their tiny apartment, trying not to disturb him even though he'd been awake since her first alarm at 4:45 a.m. Through the thin curtain that separated his bedroom, really just a corner of their living room, he watched her pack her cleaning supplies.
"Mijo, you awake?"
Elena's voice was soft, musical despite the exhaustion that lined her face.
"Yeah, Mom."
She pulled back the curtain, her dark eyes immediately going to the textbooks piled on the floor beside his mattress. "You stayed up studying again?" "Physics test today. Mr. Harrison said it's worth 30% of our grade." Elena sat on the edge of his mattress, her hand automatically smoothing down his unruly black hair. At 36, she looked both younger and older than her years. Younger in her delicate features and warm smile. Older in the way her hands trembled slightly from exhaustion, the way her back hunched just a little from years of physical labor. "You work too hard, baby."
"I have to."
"The scholarship only covers tuition. If my grades drop below a 3.8, I lose everything." "You're at 4.0.
For now."
Elena cupped his face in her hands that smelled like lemon cleaner and sacrifice. "Listen to me, Marcus. You are brilliant. You are worthy. You belong at that school just as much as any of those rich kids."
If
only she knew how wrong she was.
"I know, Mom."
"Say it like you believe it." "I belong there," he repeated dutifully, the lie sitting heavy on his tongue. She kissed his forehead and stood, her knees cracking in a way that made Marcus's chest tight. I left you $8 for lunch.
It's under the coffee can. And me, Joe? Hold your head high today. You are my son.
That makes you royalty. After she left, Marcus lay in the dark, listening to the sirens outside their window, the couple fighting in the apartment below, the drip 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 of their leaky faucet that the landlord refused to fix. Royalty, he thought bitterly.
Sure. The classroom before lunch.
The humiliation had actually started earlier, during AP Literature. Mrs. Pemberton had assigned a group project, analyzing the themes of wealth and class in The Great Gatsby. Of course, she'd let students choose their own groups. Of course, Marcus had been the last one standing. Mr. Chun, you'll join Derek, Brittany, and Jackson's group, Mrs. Pemberton had announced, not looking up from her desk. The groan from Derek had been audible across the classroom. Mrs. P, no offense, but we're aiming for an A. Like, an actual A, Derek had said, his tone dripping with condescension. My dad donates, like, a lot to this school. I think we should be able to choose team members who can actually contribute. Several students had laughed. Mrs. Pemberton's lips had thinned, but she'd said nothing. She never did. The Hastings family had funded the new athletic center. The Worthingtons had paid for the library renovation.
The Chens?
The Chens provided nothing except statistics to boost the school's diversity numbers. Marcus had moved to their table in silence, his face burning. Don't even think about freeloading, Brittany had hissed immediately.
We know your type.
You'll do nothing and take credit for our work. I can do my share, Marcus had said quietly. Jackson Park, whose family owned half the commercial real estate in the city, had leaned back in his chair, examining Marcus like he was an interesting insect. What does your dad do again, Chen? Oh wait, he'd snapped his fingers dramatically.
That's right.
He's not around, is he?
Classic.
The words had hit Marcus like a punch to the gut.
His father. The missing piece of his life.
The ghost that haunted every Father's Day, every bring your parents to school event, every college application question asking for paternal occupation. Elena never talked about him. In 15 years, Marcus had asked maybe a dozen times. Each time, his mother's face would close off, her eyes would go distant, and she'd say the same thing, he's gone, Mijo. That's all you need to know. But Marcus had found one photo, hidden in a box in their storage unit. A tall man in an expensive suit, standing in front of a building Marcus didn't recognize, looking at the camera with eyes that matched Marcus's own. On the back, in his mother's handwriting, before everything changed. Yeah, I thought so, Jackson had continued, interpreting Marcus's silence as confirmation. Single mom, government assistance, probably doesn't even know who his dad is. That's enough, Mr. Park, Mrs. Pemberton had finally interrupted, but the damage was done. Derek had leaned in close, his voice dropping to a whisper meant only for Marcus.
Meet us at lunch.
We'll discuss the project.
Table 12. And Chun?
Try not to embarrass us more than you already do just by existing here.
The aftermath.
In the supply closet, Marcus's tears finally dried up, leaving behind a hollow emptiness that felt worse than the crying. His phone screen was cracked but still working. The video now had over 2,000 views. The school administration would have seen it by now. They'd call him to the office. They'd give him the speech about resilience, and not letting others get to you while doing absolutely nothing to stop the bullying. They never did. Because boys like Derek Hastings didn't get punished. Boys who could afford lawyers and whose parents could pull funding didn't face consequences. Boys like Marcus Chin just had to take it. The bell rang for fifth period. European history. Marcus loved that class, or at least he used to, before Derek and Jackson had enrolled in it this semester. He couldn't go back out there.
Not today.
But skipping class meant risking his scholarship. Marcus forced himself to stand, splashed water on his face from the utility sink, and tried to make himself presentable. The milk stain on his jeans had dried into a crusty brown patch. His shirt smelled like cafeteria food and humiliation. He looked like exactly what they said he was.
A poor kid who didn't belong.
European history. Mr. Westbrook was already mid-lecture when Marcus slipped into the classroom 7 minutes late. Mr. Chun, how kind of you to join us, the teacher said dryly, not pausing his discussion of the French Revolution. Perhaps you can tell us about the role of economic disparity in the uprising of the Third Estate? Under other circumstances, Marcus could have answered eloquently. He'd read ahead in the textbook, fascinated by how the poor had finally risen up against systematic oppression. But today, with Derek smirking from the second row and half the class barely suppressing giggles, the words stuck in his throat. The Third Estate were the commoners, Marcus managed. They had no power. Until they took it, Mr. Westbrook finished, his eyes sharp behind his wire-rimmed glasses. Interesting parallel, wouldn't you say? Sit down, Mr. Chun. Marcus slid into his usual seat in the back corner, trying to make himself invisible. He almost succeeded. Until the note landed on his desk. It was folded into a fancy origami crane, Brittany's signature move. Inside, written in purple gel pen. Your mom called the school office. Something about not being able to pay this month's program fees? LOL, how embarrassing. Everyone in the office heard. You're even more pathetic than we thought. Do us all a favor and drop out. Kiss Mark. Marcus's vision blurred. The program fees. The $150 monthly charge for extracurricular activities and facilities use that wasn't covered by his scholarship. Elena had been scraping together the money for 2 years, but last month she'd been sick for a week and missed work. They were behind. He'd asked her not to call the school. He'd promised he'd figure something out. But of course she had called. Because she was his mother, and she'd do anything for him, even endure the humiliation of begging the school administration for a payment plan. While he sat in class with kids who spent $150 on a single dinner without thinking twice. The rage that built in Marcus's chest was new. He'd been sad before. Humiliated. Ashamed. But this burning, consuming anger? This was different. His hands curled into fists on the desk. Mr. Westbrook was still talking about revolution, about how the oppressed eventually always fight back, about how systems of inequality contain the seeds of their own destruction. Marcus wondered what his own revolution would look like. The final bell. When school ended, Marcus didn't wait for the bus. He couldn't bear the thought of sitting in the back, his designated spot, decided by an unspoken hierarchy, while Derek and his friends sat in the middle, talking loudly about their weekend plans in Aspen or whatever. Instead, he walked. The 2-hour walk from Lincoln Prep's pristine campus in the hills to his apartment building in Riverside gave him time to think. Time to replay every humiliation. Time to wonder, not for the first time, if his mother's sacrifice was worth it. Maybe he should just go to public school. Maybe he should stop trying to be something he wasn't. Maybe they were right. Maybe he didn't belong. The sun was setting by the time he reached his building, a 5-story concrete structure with barred windows and graffiti-covered walls. Someone had broken the front entrance lock again. The elevator was broken, as always. Marcus climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, his backpack feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. He could hear his mother inside before he opened the door, not moving around but crying. Soft, muffled sobs that she tried to hide from him. Marcus's hand froze on the doorknob. Mom. He pushed the door open slowly. Elena was sitting on their second-hand couch, still in her cleaning uniform, her face buried in her hands. On the coffee table in front of her, an official-looking letter from Lincoln Preparatory Academy. Marcus's stomach dropped. Mijo, Elena looked up, quickly wiping her eyes, but it was too late. Her face was blotchy, her eyes red. You're home. I was just... What's that letter? It's nothing. Don't worry about it. But Marcus was already crossing the room, picking up the letter with trembling hands. Final notice of payment due. The school was threatening to revoke his enrollment if they didn't pay the outstanding $450 in program fees within 1 week. $450. An impossible amount. A number that might as well have been 4 million. Mom. I'll figure it out, Elena said quickly, standing up and trying to take the letter from him. I picked up an extra shift at the Riverside Medical Center. And Mrs. Patterson said. She might need help with her daughter's wedding next month. I can. You're already working 70 hours a week. I'll work more. You can barely stand at the end of the day. I said I'll figure it out. Elena's voice cracked, echoing in their tiny apartment. Silence fell between them. Marcus looked at his mother, this woman who'd given up everything for him, who'd worn herself down to nothing so he could have opportunities she'd never had, and felt something break inside his chest. Maybe I should just leave Lincoln Prep, he heard himself say. Absolutely not. Mom, it's not worth it. I don't fit in there. I never will. Those kids, they hate me. The teachers don't care. And you're killing yourself for a school that treats me like I'm less than human. Elena grabbed his shoulders, her grip surprisingly strong. You listen to me, Marcus Chin. That school? It's your future. It's your ticket to college, to scholarships, to a life better than this. She gestured around their cramped apartment. I don't care if those kids are cruel. I don't care if it's hard. You are going to graduate from Lincoln Preparatory Academy. Do you understand me? But your father, Elena stopped abruptly, her eyes going wide as if she'd said something forbidden. Marcus's heart stopped. What about my father?
Nothing. I didn't mean. Mom, please.
Marcus's voice broke.
For once, just tell me the truth. Who is he?
Why isn't he here? Does he even know I exist? Elena turned away, her shoulders shaking. For a long moment, Marcus thought she wouldn't answer. She never did. But then, so quietly he almost didn't hear it.
He knows.
3 words that changed everything.
He knows, Marcus repeated.
What do you mean he knows?
You said he was gone. You said, he is gone. From our lives. By choice.
Elena's voice had gone cold in a way Marcus had never heard. Your father. He's not a good man, Mijo.
He's powerful. Wealthy.
And he made it very clear 15 years ago that he wanted nothing to do with us.
The room tilted.
Wealthy. Marcus whispered. Elena's laugh was bitter.
Oh yes.
Very wealthy. Your father could pay that school fee with the change from his couch cushions.
But he won't.
Because to him, we don't exist. Marcus felt like he was drowning.
What's his name?
It doesn't matter.
What's his name?
Elena turned to face him, tears streaming down her cheeks. Promise me you won't try to contact him. Promise me, Marcus. He's dangerous in ways you can't understand. He has lawyers, power, influence. I need to know.
Why?
So he can reject you all over again? So you can feel the same pain I felt when he told me I was nothing but a mistake he needed to erase. The words hung in the air like poison. Did you love him? Marcus asked quietly.
Elena's face crumpled.
So much it nearly destroyed me. Mother and son stood in that tiny apartment as the sun set outside their barred windows, surrounded by everything they'd barely managed to hold on to, connected by a secret that had shaped both their lives. Finally, Elena spoke. His name is Richard Hastings.
The world stopped.
Richard Hastings. Richard Hastings.
Derek's father.
The man who donated millions to Lincoln Prep. The real estate mogul whose face was on billboards across the city. The billionaire philanthropist who gave speeches about family values and the importance of fatherhood. The man whose legitimate son had spit in Marcus's face just hours earlier. Marcus's legs gave out. He sat down hard on the couch, his mind racing. Derek Hastings wasn't just his bully. Derek Hastings was his half-brother.
The truth unfolds.
You're lying, Marcus heard himself say. You're lying. This can't be. I worked for his company 15 years ago, Elena said, her voice mechanical, like she was reciting facts to distance herself from the pain.
Executive assistant. He was married.
I was young, stupid, in love. It lasted 6 months before his wife found out. He gave me $10,000 and told me to handle it. When I told him I was keeping you, he had his lawyers draw up papers. I signed away any right to contact him, to use his name, to ever claim paternity. In exchange, he promised he wouldn't try to take you from me. That's why we moved?
Elena nodded.
From Chicago to here. I wanted to get as far away as possible. I took my maiden name back. I made sure there was no trail connecting us. Then why? Marcus's voice rose. Why did you put me in his son's school? Why would you do that to me?
I didn't know. Elena's voice cracked.
Lincoln Prep recruits scholarship students from all over the state. I only saw the name Hastings on the donor wall after your first day. By then, you were so excited about the school, the opportunities. I thought maybe it would be okay. I thought maybe we'd never cross paths with them.
But we did. I know, Mijo. I know.
Marcus's mind was reeling. Every interaction with Derek played through his head in a new, horrible light.
The contempt. The cruelty.
The way Derek seemed to enjoy humiliating him specifically. Did Derek know? Did Richard Hastings know his illegitimate son was at the same school as his legitimate heir? He knows I'm there, Marcus said slowly.
He has to know.
He practically owns the school. He'd see my name on the scholarship list. Elena's silence was confirmation enough.
So he just, what?
Pretends I don't exist? Watches his son torment me? Lets his wife and his real family live in their mansion while we live here. Marcus's voice was rising, years of pain and confusion finally finding a target.
Marcus. No.
Do you understand what this means? Every single day, I've been going to school with my own brother. A brother who hates me, who treats me like garbage, who, Marcus stopped, a horrible realization dawning.
Oh my God. Today. The cafeteria.
What if Derek knows too?
He doesn't, Elena said firmly.
Richard would never tell him. It would complicate his perfect family image. How can you be sure? Because I know Richard Hastings. And his reputation matters more to him than anything else in the world.
More than me.
More than you. More than the truth. Marcus stood up abruptly, heading for the door. Where are you going?
To the Hastings estate.
I'm going to make him look at me. I'm going to make him acknowledge me.
No.
Elena grabbed his arm.
Marcus, please. You can't.
He'll destroy you. He has the power to take everything from us. Our home, my jobs, your scholarship. He made that very clear in the contract. I don't care.
But I do.
Elena was crying again.
I care.
You are all I have in this world, Mijo. I won't let him hurt you the way he hurt me. Marcus pulled away from her. He's already hurting me, Mom. Every single day. And now I know why he doesn't stop Derek. He probably enjoys it. His legitimate son bullying his shameful secret. It's poetic, really.
Please, Marcus.
Please just think about this.
Wait. Let me.
But Marcus was already out the door. Marcus ran through the darkening streets like a man possessed. The Hastings estate was in Silverwood Heights, the most exclusive neighborhood in the city, where gates were tall, security was tight, and people like Elena Chun only entered through service entrances. It was a 40-minute drive. On foot, cutting through back streets and parks, Marcus made it in 90 minutes. By the time he reached the towering iron gates with the ornate H crest, his lungs burned and his shirt was soaked with sweat. But the fire in his chest, the rage, the hurt, the desperate need for answers, only grew stronger. The estate loomed beyond the gates like something from a movie. The main house was a modern architectural masterpiece of glass and steel, illuminated by landscape lighting that made it glow against the night sky. Marcus could see multiple wings, a fountain in the circular driveway, perfectly manicured gardens that probably cost more to maintain than his mother earned in a year. This was where his father lived. This was what his father had chosen over them. Marcus approached the call box at the gate, his hand shaking as he pressed the button. Hastings residence. The voice was female, professional, bored. Probably a housekeeper or assistant. I need to see Richard Hastings. Mr. Hastings doesn't take unscheduled visitors. If you'd like to make an appointment, tell him Elena Chen's son is here. Silence on the other end. Then, excuse me.
You heard me. Elena Chun.
Tell him her son is at his gate and I'm not leaving until he sees me. Young man, I don't know what you think.
Tell him.
Marcus's voice echoed across the quiet street. Lights flickered on in neighboring mansions. Tell him Marcus Chen is here and he can either come out or I start screaming the truth for the whole neighborhood to hear.
More silence. Then, stay there. The line went dead.
Marcus waited, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. Around him, Silverwood Heights existed in its bubble of wealth and privilege. Expensive cars and driveways, security cameras on every corner, the kind of peace that money could buy. He didn't belong here either. But he had a right to be here.
Didn't he? 5 minutes passed. Then 10.
Marcus was starting to think they'd called the police instead when the front door of the mansion opened. A man emerged, not Richard Hastings, but someone else. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark suit despite the late hour. Security. He spoke into an earpiece as he walked down the driveway toward the gate. Behind him, moving more slowly, came Richard Hastings himself. Marcus had only seen him in photos, on billboards, in newspaper articles, in that one picture his mother had hidden away. But seeing him in person made everything real in a way that nothing else had. Richard Hastings was 52 but looked 40. Athletic build maintained by expensive personal trainers. Silver-streaked dark hair styled perfectly.
Sharp jaw.
And eyes, Marcus's eyes, that same unusual amber brown that Marcus saw in the mirror every day. The resemblance was unmistakable. How had no one at school noticed? But then, why would they? Rich people didn't look at poor kids closely enough to see family resemblance. Richard stopped about 10 feet from the gate, his expression unreadable. The security guard stood beside him, hand near his belt where Marcus assumed a weapon was holstered. You have 60 seconds, Richard said, his voice deep and authoritative, a voice used to giving commands and being obeyed. Then I'm calling the police and having you arrested for trespassing.
I'm your son.
Marcus's voice came out stronger than he felt.
Your son.
And you know it. I don't know what your mother told you.
Don't you dare.
Marcus gripped the iron bars of the gate so hard his knuckles went white.
Don't you dare pretend.
I know everything.
The affair. The payoff. The contract.
I know you made her disappear and pretend I don't exist. Richard's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly.
What do you want?
What do I want? Marcus laughed bitterly. I want to know how you sleep at night. I want to know how you give speeches about family values while your son, lives in a one-bedroom apartment where the heat doesn't work. I want to know how you let Derek. At Derek's name, Richard's expression finally changed.
His eyes sharpened.
You go to Lincoln Prep.
Scholarship student. Yeah. Funny coincidence, right?
Except you knew. You had to know. I knew there was a Chun on the scholarship list. I didn't make the connection.
Liar.
Marcus's voice shook. You have to approve every scholarship. You probably saw my application.
My essay.
My mother's employment history. You knew. Richard took a step closer to the gate, and Marcus saw something flicker across his face. Not guilt, not quite. Something harder to name. What exactly do you think you're going to accomplish here, Marcus?
You want money?
Your mother signed away any legal claim. I don't want your money. The words exploded out of Marcus. I want you to acknowledge me. I want you to look at me and say it. Say that I'm your son. Keep your voice down, Richard hissed, glancing toward the neighboring estates.
Why? Afraid someone might hear?
Afraid your perfect reputation might get tarnished. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Then explain it to me. Marcus was shouting now, 15 years of abandonment pouring out. Explain why you got to keep everything, your wife, your real son, your perfect life, while my mom works herself to death. Explain why you donated millions to that school but can't spare $450 so I don't get kicked out. Explain why Derek gets to treat me like garbage and you don't say a word. Derek doesn't know, Richard said sharply.
I know he doesn't.
Because God forbid your precious legitimate heir finds out he has a bastard brother. What would that do to his sense of entitlement?
Watch your mouth. Or what? You'll disown me? Too late.
You already did that before I was born. Richard ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, the first sign of genuine agitation Marcus had seen. This conversation is over. David, he nodded to the security guard.
Call the police. No, wait.
Marcus pressed against the gate.
Please.
Just answer me one thing. One thing and I'll leave. Richard paused, his hand on his phone. Did you ever want me? Marcus's voice cracked. Even for a second? When Mom told you she was pregnant, was there even a moment where you thought about being my father? The silence that followed felt like it lasted forever. Richard's face was stone.
No. One word. 2 letters. A complete destruction.
You were a mistake, Richard continued, his voice cold and businesslike.
A complication.
Your mother was young and beautiful and I was weak. But I have a family.
A real family.
A wife I love, a son I'm proud of, a legacy to protect.
You?
You're just evidence of one bad decision. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face but couldn't stop them. I paid your mother well. More than generous compensation. She made her choice to keep you. That's not my responsibility. And now you need to make a choice, Marcus. You can walk away from this gate, finish your education at Lincoln Prep quietly, and maybe, I'll make sure that scholarship stays secure.
Or what?
Or I destroy you both. Richard's eyes were chips of ice. I make one phone call and your mother loses every job she has. I make another and that scholarship evaporates. I have lawyers who will bury you in paperwork until you wish you'd never heard my name. I've done it before, to people who threatened to expose things I wanted hidden. I will do it again.
You can't.
I can and I will. For the first time, Richard raised his voice, and Marcus heard the power behind it. The power of someone who'd built an empire by crushing anyone in his way. You think you're special? You think being my biological son gives you some kind of claim on me? I have no son named Marcus Chin. I never did. I never will. Marcus stumbled backward from the gate. Now get off my property before I have you arrested. Richard turned away, walking back toward the mansion without another glance. Derek spit in my face today. Marcus screamed after him. Your son, your real son, he spit in my face in front of the whole school.
He humiliated me.
And you don't even care. Richard stopped walking but didn't turn around. That's the difference between Derek and you, Marcus. Derek is a Hastings.
He can do what he wants. You? You're nobody.
And you always will be. Then he was gone, disappearing into the mansion. The security guard, David, watched Marcus with something that might have been pity. You should go, kid.
Before this gets worse.
How could it get worse?
Marcus whispered.
But he turned and walked away, his legs somehow carrying him down the perfect streets of Silverwood Heights, past houses that glowed with warmth and wealth, past lives he would never have. He'd come looking for acknowledgement. He'd found something worse than rejection. He'd found absolute indifference.
Midnight.
Marcus didn't go home. He couldn't face his mother, not yet, not with Richard's words still echoing in his skull.
You were a mistake. A complication. Nobody. Instead, he walked.
Through the rich neighborhoods, through the commercial district, through parts of the city he'd never seen before. His phone rang 17 times, his mother frantic, but he couldn't answer. Around midnight, he found himself at Riverside Park, a small patch of grass and playground equipment near his apartment building. During the day, it was full of families. At night, it belonged to insomniacs, homeless people, and broken teenagers. Marcus sat on a swing, dragging his feet in the dirt, and tried to figure out what came next. He could expose Richard.
Go to the media.
Prove paternity with a DNA test. Watch the billionaire philanthropist's reputation crumble when the world learned he'd abandoned his illegitimate son. But what would that accomplish? His mother would lose her jobs. He'd lose his scholarship. They'd probably end up homeless. And Richard Hastings? He had the money and lawyers to weather any scandal. He'd paint Elena as a gold digger, Marcus as a troubled teenager seeking attention. The media would forget in a week.
The rich always won.
That was the truth Marcus had learned tonight. The system was rigged, and people like him, people like his mother, they were just casualties.
Marcus. He looked up, startled.
A girl stood at the edge of the playground, someone from school, though it took Marcus a moment to place her. Sophia Martinez. They had AP Calculus together. She usually sat in the middle of the class, not popular but not outcast either. Existed in that safe middle zone. What are you doing here? Marcus's voice was rough from shouting and crying.
I live 2 blocks over.
Sophia gestured vaguely. Saw you from my window. You looked like maybe you shouldn't be alone.
I'm fine.
You're crying in a park at midnight.
You're not fine.
She sat on the swing next to him. Is this about the cafeteria thing? Of course she'd seen the video.
Everyone had.
That's part of it. Derek's an asshole. Despite everything, Marcus almost smiled.
Yeah.
They swung in silence for a moment. Sophia was small, barely 5 feet, with dark curly hair and glasses that were perpetually crooked. Marcus had never really noticed her before, but then, he didn't notice much at Lincoln Prep beyond his own survival.
Can I tell you something?
Sophia said finally. Something I've never told anyone at school?
Sure.
My mom cleans houses too.
In Riverside.
She probably works with your mom sometimes. Marcus's head snapped toward her.
What?
I'm on scholarship too.
Full ride.
My dad died 3 years ago, car accident. Mom works 3 jobs to keep our apartment. I wear my cousin's hand-me-downs. Half the food we eat comes from the church food bank. Sophia looked at him directly.
But at school? I pretend.
I let people assume my mom is a home organizer instead of a housekeeper. I bought one expensive purse, saved for 8 months, so I'd have something name brand to carry. I laugh at jokes I don't think are funny.
I'm invisible. And I'm ashamed of that.
Every single day. Why are you telling me this? Because you're not invisible, Marcus.
You could have been.
You could have done what I do, hide, blend in, survive.
But you didn't.
You stayed true to who you are, even when it made you a target. That takes courage I don't have. That's not courage, Marcus said bitterly. That's just stupidity. Look where it got me. It got you here.
Alive. Yourself.
That matters.
Does it?
Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper. Sometimes I think everyone would be better off if I just disappeared. Sophia grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong.
Don't.
Don't you dare think that. You know what Derek and his friends are? They're scared.
Scared? Of what?
They have everything. They're scared that one day, People like you and me won't need their approval. They're scared that merit might matter more than money. They're scared that underneath all their wealth and privilege, they're actually pretty mediocre. That's why they need to keep us down. Because if we ever stand up...
We can't stand up, Marcus interrupted. I tried that tonight. I confronted someone who hurt me.
Want to know what happened?
I got crushed. Threatened.
Reminded exactly how powerless I am. Sophia studied him with sharp, intelligent eyes.
Who did you confront?
For a moment, Marcus considered telling her everything.
About Richard.
About Derek being his half-brother. About the horrible irony of his entire situation. But the words wouldn't come.
Doesn't matter.
Point is, the system is rigged. And we can't change it.
Not tonight, maybe. Not alone. Sophia stood up. But Marcus? Someday?
I think you're going to change things. I really do. She started to walk away, then turned back.
For what it's worth.
I'm glad you exist. The world needs people who don't give up on themselves, even when everyone else does. Then she was gone, leaving Marcus alone with the swings and the darkness and the faint sound of sirens in the distance.
2 a.m., the apartment.
When Marcus finally dragged himself home, he expected anger.